Now the next session is by Dr. S. Ramakrishnan. I request Dr. Khemsara to please introduce Dr. S. Ramakrishnan. He's a wonderful speaker, and he will be talking about pulmonary arterial hypertension. Dr. Khemsara, please. Just unmute yourself, Dr. Khemsara. Yes.
S. Ramakrishnan is MBBS and DDM in cardiology, FACC and FSCI. He is professor of cardiology in Department of AIIMS, New Delhi, actively involved in clinical research, patient care, and educational activities. He has more than 170 publications in indexed journals. He has won numerous awards, including D.P. Basu Award, Nanda Award, Sujoy B. Roy Award, and Best Poster and awards in ACC. He has organized several updates, national and international conferences, and cardiology workshops. Over to Dr. S. Ramakrishnan.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes.
Yeah. So I think by the time yeah. So my screen visible?
Yeah, but make it slideshow, sir, so that it will be, yeah, that's perfect.
I made slideshow here.
Yes.
Share my
Continue, Am I?
Yeah, so it's okay, sir.
Okay. So I think I will quickly go through the bird's eye view of the current management issues in primarily idiopathic pulmonary arterial hypertension. Because understanding that disease, I think you will understand the management of various other diseases. So like a typical idiopathic pulmonary arterial hypertension, this patient comes in who is a 27-year-old female, a class 3 dyspnea of 3-month duration. She has heart failure, JVP is elevated, hepatomegaly is there, and an echocardiography, the TR velocity is 78. So which is a very advanced disease commonly, which we see in quite often in India. So commonly nowadays with CT angiography being available everywhere, so we get generally a report done. So dilated pulmonary arteries and no other causes found, and have HIV, ANA, and rheumatoid factor all negative. Because one of the most common cause of hypertension, pulmonary arterial hypertension, include the various rheumatological diseases as well as HIV. And she is invariably started on sildenafil 20 mg TDS. So now the patient is referred to us, and what are the things that we will be doing like? So what are the other important questions in evaluation of this patient who has advanced pulmonary arterial hypertension? So one of the most important things that we look at is what is the etiology and what is the prognosis of the patient and how advanced the disease. So for this, we will be doing few more investigations. One is VQ scan. So one common question that is asked is, should we all get both VQ scan as well as CT angiography to rule out what is known as CTEPH? That is, CTEPH is the chronic thromboembolic pulmonary hypertension. So the VQ scan gives you the physiology of the obstruction, whereas the CT angiography will give you the anatomy of the obstruction. So oftentimes in the management of CTEPH, both are done. But in ruling out also, there are some studies suggest that possibly VQ scan is superior to CT angiography, but with the betterment of technique and the availability of better scans everywhere. So I think even CT angiography may be good enough in a vast majority of patients. Another important thing that is overlooked in routine clinical practice is the lack of use of 6-minute walk distance. So 6-minute walk distance is such a wonderful tool. I think most of you practice pulmonology also. So I think this is such a wonderful tool in idiopathic pulmonary arterial hypertension that must be done and documented in all patients before they are put on any drug. And then if affordable BNP is helpful, and then in echocardiography, apart from the TR velocity, they are supposed to look at the PR as well as the pulmonary artery acceleration, the acceleration time, pulmonary acceleration time, as well as very importantly TAPC. So TAPC is the annular tricuspid annular the expression, systolic expression. So that can actually guide you in prognosis. And then very importantly, most of these patients need at least one cardiac catheterization in their lifetime and one response to pulmonary vasodilator testing. So this is essentially that should be done in all patients who are presenting with idiopathic pulmonary arterial hypertension. So what will you do? So this patient, you are managing this patient. The patient's improvement is less than satisfactory. Will you increase sildenafil dose? Will you switch it over to riociguat? Will you add bosentan if affordable? Or will you go for some other therapies like balloon arterial septostomy or other things? So the Generally, increasing the dose generally is not very helpful, and we are now more often than not realizing that possibly bosentan addition of another agent is very helpful. So this is a timeline of PH drug development. So I think last 10 years have been wonderful for PH. Like a lot of drugs have come in, like macitentan, riociguat, treprostinil, all have come into vogue, and they are all FDA approved now. So this is now we have an armamentarium of what do these drugs do? So earlier we used to use improve 6-minute walk distance because that is the only trial evidence that we had. So, but when we put together all the randomized control trial of small trials, there is 23 RCTs. They produced in 43% reduction in mortality. Let me tell you, even if there is no evidence of mortality reduction, people who have managed pulmonary arterial hypertension in the era before these drugs and the era after these drugs, there is a palpable difference. So one important thing that we all have to understand is whatever said and done, pulmonary arterial hypertension is worse in cancers. Yes, IPH is worse than many cancers. I think the mortality is pretty bad, but nowadays things have improved compared to the predicted NIH registry data. So now the mortality is slightly better. So then there are additional new agents that have come up. So we always been having sildenafil, tadalafil, and bosentan and ambrisentan. So now what is much to appreciate about macitentan? So macitentan is the new drug that the trial published in 2013. It is no longer new. It is available for quite some time. That actually was the first trial that looked at a clinically meaningful endpoint. It is not looking at a 6-minute walk distance. It is not looking at a CAT-driven PVRI. It is looking at a clinically driven endpoint. And if you look at all the previous studies of PH till that time, and if you look at this macitentan serapin trial, this was bigger and larger than all the PH trials put together. So we actually moved into a new era of trial methods in PH, where I think no longer we will accept a simple improvement in 6-minute walk distance as a measure to approve a drug. So I think why this is different. Macitentan and ambrisentan, they have the advantage of no need to monitor liver function test. Whereas if you use bosentan, you are supposed to periodically monitor the liver function test. Most important thing is macitentan is dual selective, and it has some mechanical benefits also, like some mechanical benefits where it actually maintains the vasodilator efforts compared to bosentan. And another important drug that has come into vogue is riociguat. So riociguat is the soluble guanylate cyclase stimulators. Let me tell you one thing. This is actually the similar mechanism. It's not exactly similar. They are phosphodiesterase inhibitor, but both of them act in the same pathway. So you cannot combine riociguat with sildenafil or tadalafil. So riociguat can be supplemented for sildenafil or tadalafil. The real advantage, that real medicine that has been launched now recently in India is selexipag. So selexipag is a oral prostacyclin receptor agonist, and it is distinct from prostacyclin. The Griffon trial clearly showed that clinically driven endpoints actually improved with selexipag. So we now have 3 very important drugs in the armamentarium of PH management. So what we had earlier era were just sildenafil, tadalafil, ambrisentan, and bosentan. These were the only drug that is available to an Indian patient. Now we have macitentan in the endothelial receptor antagonist pathway, and we have riociguat in the cyclic guanylate cyclic stimulator, and we have actually the wonder drugs which actually improve outcomes in class 4 and PH patients, not available in India. But now we have, I think selexipag is getting available. Now we have a oral prostacyclin agent that could be of use. So how to use that is the medical problem that happens in a clinician. I think most of them, like we use the WHO functional class in classifying the dyspnea. They are similar to NOHA functional class. So the patient is class 2 symptomatic or class 3 or class 4. Your therapy will determined by that. So if you want to start monotherapy, the calcium channel blockers are only indicated if you show pulmonary vasoreactivity in cardiac catheterization. So that's why I said in all patients at least once cardiac catheterization must be performed. And then endothelin receptor antagonist or phosphodiesterase inhibitor, all are class 1 indication, or even you can use riociguat. So all of them are class 1 in a class 2 or a class 3 patient. You can use any of them. Whereas prostanoids become the real class 1 indicators, especially epoprostenol for all class 3 and class 4 patients. Class 3 is an overlap, and class 4 patients only class 1 indication is epoprostenol. So even selexipag is a class 1 indication now for class 2 and class 3 patients. So another important thing concept that has come in, I think we all understand the benefit of combination therapy, especially when you have multiple pathways, you add the drugs rather than increasing the dose of the drug. I think this will be much beneficial. So this, I think, has come in. I think this was also proven by the AMBITION trial, where the combination of tadalafil and ambrisentan has clearly shown to be superior than either of them alone. But one important thing that we all have to understand is that it's not necessary that every patient who comes into your clinic with a PH must be put on a combination therapy. I think patients are class 3, patients are reduced 600 distance, all of those people on initial combination therapy. The most used combination is tadalafil with ambrisentan, because that is the most evidence-based combination. So this is the recommendation for combination therapy in PH. This is the class 1 indication, and rest of the combinations are class 2 indication. So what will you do? What will be the treatment algorithm for pulmonary arterial hypertension? So we should do a pulmonary vasoreactivity testing, and if they are responsive, then we should treat them with a calcium channel receptor blocker. If the risk is class 2 or class 3, then you can use either of them. Initial monotherapy with any of the agents that I told you, either sildenafil, tadalafil, or eosinophil in one group, or you can use bosentan, ambrisentan, and macitentan in the other group, or you can use selexipag, or you can use initial or combination therapy can be there. Your response can be assessed, and then you can go for a triple sequential combination therapy. And then if that is not working, then you have to go for the non-pharmacological therapy that are available. In class 4, you are supposed to start with a combination agent, and generally including IV prostanoids, which is generally not available in our country. So what are the ways to improve outcomes in PH? Because the early treatment, obviously, it's no brainer that we need to identify patients much earlier than what we are doing in India, and then we intervene very early and possibly more aggressively. That is what has been the concept, that we can actually do reverse remodeling of whatever changes that has happened. And another important concept that has come in is the goal-oriented therapy. Like now we have fixed goals where we need to achieve in every patient. And if none of them work, because I told you, like even still, despite all these advances, still it remains a bad disease. And oftentimes patient works and patient cannot afford medicines. And now we end up doing some interventions like balloon atrial septostomy, where the ASD is created by intervention, or a stenting is placed, and then in the atrial septum, then the patient actually starts shunting right to left across the ASD, where I think you are getting more cardiac output at the expense of desaturation. So it has to be balanced, and there are specific indications and contraindications. So I think we should major indication is recurrent syncope or near syncope is an indication despite all medical therapy. And the various surgical palliation that has come up is a pod shunt. The pod shunt is a shunt that is created either interventionally or by surgically, where we create a graft is placed between the left pulmonary artery and the descending aorta. So again, similar to the BAS, we actually create only desaturation of the lower limb, and we try to maintain the cardiac output. And the ultimate thing that remains is heart lung or the lung transplant. I won't be going to the details of the indications and contraindications, but there are many potential new therapeutic targets that have been actually envisaged and that have been in the work. I specifically, other things that are available are like the stem cell therapy and then pulmonary artery denervation. So these are the two therapies that have been tried, and but I think there are very few trials and they are still considered experimental. So one important thing that is that actually has to be cautioned here is all these therapies are actually approved in group 1 PH. That means familial, the idiopathic PH, hereditary PH, and all the other things. If you have a PH because of left-sided heart disease, none of these drugs known to work. And if you have a PH because of COPD, none of these agents are indicated. There are many trials that have actually been stopped with these agents. So COPD and ILDs, you are supposed to use only when you consider that pH is out of proportion to the lung disease or hypoxia. So then only you are supposed to use. But I think the problem is that there are more awareness and there is more noise, and we have better alternative diagnosis, better diagnose, but there's better penetration of drugs. But one caveat here is that the combined use of all these agents in today's market, from the market analysis, is much more, almost 10 times more than the total number of IPH and Eisenmenger syndromes estimated in this country. So there is gross misuse of these agents. Like, for example, many times you find a TR velocity of 40, invariably the next thing that goes in the prescription is sildenafil. So I think that should be, we need to identify the disease, characterize the disease, and then we know which drugs actually act, and then where it is indicated. Only in those group of patients we should use. When you use these agents in IPH, we have to go for initial combination therapies, and possibly PH centers and specialists are very important. And then, but most importantly, it still remains often undiagnosed or later diagnosed. But since I think outcome may be less than satisfactory, but still it is intellectually challenging to handle with these 25-year-old, 30-year-old females who are looking for the future in their life, and then suddenly realize they have a disease that they're going to die in 2 years' time. But it's really emotionally draining when you see a patient who is doing well on ambrisentan or bosentan, and he comes back with grass actually because he couldn't afford the drug. And this is really happening, and that really hurts us. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, sir. It's a difficult topic otherwise for a common physician to understand. But yes, certain things are very clear. So I wanted to know what is the success rate of stem cell at present with PAH? Are we doing any study on stem cell at AIIMS?
No, sir. We had a small publication, and actually this once we start doing randomized control trial, there is not much of a benefit. Even though there is a good amount of benefit initially, but then not. And then it's a doing a bone marrow or even a thing actually carries a mortality risk in these patients. Okay. So generally, still we have a proof, then we should not be doing it.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for such a quick and wonderful lecture on PAH. We simply wanted introduction to our clinicians so that they can understand what is the basics. And nicely pointed about the benefits of using macitentan of drugs. Of course, we started using with bosentan, but now once we have better drugs available with less side effects, they are the ones which are being used nowadays in combination. Thank you very much, sir.
I want to make one more point. Even though it is maybe better, but then bosentan is still good. You don't have to replace patients who are doing well on bosentan to macitentan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.